Thank you for being here at the Management Committee meeting for April 12th. We have a quorum, so I call the meeting to order. We have a couple of things I just want to point out. We have the agenda before us. If you look at item 4, there was one minor change made, and that is that we're removing the word liability out of item number 4 in the non-consent business. So just so everybody's aware, so it reads risk management, legal services master contract, and I just, I'm sorry, risk management, wrong one. This way. Sorry, I'm gonna restate that. So item 4 is risk management workers' compensation, legal services master contract. So, just one, there we go. All right, thanks. Sorry, thanks, Councilmember Barber.
Backup IT specialist.
Yeah, you do it all here, don't you? All right, so because I'm just making that known to everybody and everybody who's watching from home or work or wherever you are, I'm just gonna ask, are there any changes to the agenda other than that? Seeing none, then we're going to consider without objection the agenda has been approved. With that, we'll move on to the approval of the draft March 22nd Management Committee minutes. Everybody's received those in advance and had a chance to review them. Are there any edits, changes, anything you need to discuss? All right, seeing none, then I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
It's been moved by Lilligren. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Barber. Any other further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. And that passes unanimously. We'll now move on to our non-consent business, and we've got reports from our standing committee. So we've got item 2022-70 is a temporary staffing services amendment to a master contract. And we've got with us today, we've got Todd Rowley, the Director of Management, Talent Management, and Joyce Masar, I hope I said that right, Joyce, Senior HR Manager. So welcome to both of you. Thanks for being here today.
Madam Chair, council members, thank you so much. Good afternoon. I'm Todd Rowley, the Director of Talent Management, and today I bring with me a colleague.
Madam Chair, council members, Joyce Masar, Senior HR Manager.
And Joyce and I have the first two agenda items today, number 70 and number 90. And they are they're different, but they're very related. So I'm going to talk about them as a whole, and then we'll talk about money, which is the request today, separately. And so I'll talk about them together, but it will require two different motions to adopt. So, temporary staffing services, we had an RFP in 2019 pre-pandemic, and those contracts were awarded in 2020 with Masterson, which is the C contract, the A contract, 90, and then Infogenie is the C contract, business item 70. So, when we entered into those contracts, you can imagine it's a challenge for us to anticipate how much temporary staffing services would be needed throughout the council for a 5-year contract. We're nearing the end of the 3rd year of a 5-year contract, and our money is running short due to 3 things that have happened due to the pandemic, and that is the Great Resignation, so people are leaving. The low unemployment rate, and then the tight labor market. So as we're trying to hire replacements for these vacancies, temporary services are being used more and longer than anticipated. So I come here before you today to request that you authorize the regional administrator to amend both subcontracts A and C. The first one, business item 70, for Infogenie, we're requesting an additional $500,000 for the next 2 years. And business item 90, contract A with Masterson, we're requesting an additional $1.5 million for the next 2 years. So with that, I open it up for questions.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Are there any questions? And we'll take these one by one. So right now we're on 2023-70. So on that item, are there any questions? Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's really on both of them. And so I understand the need for additional temporary staffing services now, but I can see this being a longer term thing. Do you see that trend that we're going to need to rely on some more temporary services for, beyond this, just sort of as a general practice just because of the changing labor market?
Madam Chair? Yes, I think that we'll always rely somewhat on temporary staffing services. There are 4 main reasons. One is peak workload to cover that, staff vacancies, staff absences, and then a special project. So we'll always need temporary staffing services for those. We're hoping that, the amount of money that we're asking today will carry us through the next 2 years where in the meantime, we would open it up for a new RFP, a new solicitation, and it could be these 2 vendors again or, different vendors. But Joyce and I, we both oversee recruitment here at the council, and we are seeing a change in the applicant pools. They're growing, so there are more candidates in our applicant pools and more qualified applicants in these pools. So we're hopeful at this point.
That is great news, actually. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Rubber. I had that question too. Any other questions? I would just add on to that. What do you think is causing the greater number of people in the pools and the greater qualified applicants in the pools? Do you have any sense of what that's about?
We're thinking that as people were waiting, after sort of the end of the pandemic and wondering what is remote work gonna look like? What are other people gonna do? I waited to retire, should I retire now? Should I now go out and seek other employment? So I think that's changing and it's shifting, and so people are now feeling more comfortable in making a move to other positions, especially knowing what the market looks like for remote work.
Very good. Any other questions? All right then, seeing no other discussion, we'll take up item 2023-70 first, and I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Pacheco, moved by Barber. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Now we'll take up item 2023-90, which we again have had the report on that. Are there any questions on that particular contract amendment? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Lilligren. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Lee. Any other further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no, and that passes unanimously. So thank you, and I will just say for this committee, I just asked George yesterday as I was reading through this and some other things to help pull together a report for this group about where are we really at right now with hiring, vacancies, staffing, what are the trends, so that we can have those big numbers in IT, transit, RA, whatever. Because we hear and we can feel the pinch that you're going through right now here at the council, and I'm speaking to all of our wonderful staff people. So I personally want to better understand, but I think it's good for this group to get a look at it. So that'll be coming. It might take a little bit of time, but he's promised me that he'll bring that back so that we can have that global view, and especially ahead of going into budget, I think that'll be helpful for us too. So thanks for your great work, and thanks for being here today to present on those items.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to item 2023-73, and that is the April Special Transportation Budget Amendment, and we've got Mr. McMullan with us today, Director of Budget. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I am Stewart McMullan, Director of Budget Operations, and I'm bringing forward the 2023 April Special Transportation Budget Amendment. My pronouns are he, him, and his, and my phone number is 651-602-1374. Again, my last name is McMullan, which I was told in 8th grade is Gaelic for son of a bald man. So committee members, you may call me Mr. McMullan, but I certainly prefer you call me Stewart.
Well, Stewart, I think you've set the new standard by which we'll be introducing ourselves. Well done.
Stewart. With me and available to answer any questions the committee might have is Ed Petrie, Metro Transit Finance Director, and Alicia Vapp, Project Director for the Gold Line. Typically, we will bring forward to this committee at least 3 budget amendments every year. A carry forward first quarter amendment which we did in early March, a second quarter amendment in June, and a third quarter amendment in September. As circumstances dictate, we will bring forward additional budget amendments as needed for singular or multiple items to add urgent expenditures and/or revenues to the unified budget. This amendment is one of those urgent singular items that is outside the planned schedule. This amendment makes changes to a single but very important project in the capital budget at Metro Transit. The proposed amendment was reviewed and approved by the Transportation Committee this past Monday. Good timing, April 10th. If it is approved this afternoon, it will be on the agenda for action at tonight's full council meeting. This amendment recognizes the very recently awarded full funding grant agreement from the FTA for the Gold Line BRT project, a project in the current adopted Capital Improvement Program, or CIP. The amendment adds $239 million in federal revenues for this project and adds those funds to the Metro Transit Authorized Capital Program, or ACP. The individual change is noted in the attached Table 9. The motion is that the Metropolitan Council authorizes the 2023 unified budget as amended and in accordance with the attached table.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this? It's a big one. The big check is sitting back here. I couldn't make it to the Gold Line celebration yesterday, but I saw the photos and Councilmember Barber, do you want to say anything about this?
I do, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We did have a great event yesterday, and I want to really express my sincere thanks to the representatives from FTA who were there. We were very gracious and very lucky to have Administrator Fernandez there, as well as our District 5 Representative Kelly Brookins and a couple of other of their key staff people. And it was really a great event that showcased sort of the great partnerships between all of this, between the federal government, the states, the cities along the corridor, and the counties. And just a very big thank you for everyone to all the work that has gone to bring this very important project to the east side of the metro.
You're here. Any other discussion? It's a big day for the region and state, quite frankly, so congrats to everybody who's worked on it thus far, and it'll be a wonderful project going forward for sure, but we have to do this in order to make that happen. So if there's no other discussion, I would entertain a motion then to approve the amendment to the budget as proposed by Stewart.
So moved.
It's been moved by Barber. Is there a second? Seconded by Pacheco. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, no. And that passes unanimously. And I will be carrying forward this motion then to our council meeting today, but I'm gonna turn it over to you, Councilmember Barber, to give you the deference that you deserve on this motion, and we'll kind of do it as a tag team.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, great. That is all for that item, so a big one, and thank you to everybody again for being involved in that. We will now move on to item 2023-74, Risk Management Workers' Compensation Legal Services Master Contract, and we have Mr. Walljasper here. And I'd like you to tell us how your last night.
The standard has been set. I don't know if I can match this, but.
And who else, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'll introduce.
Okay, great.
So Madam Chair, committee members, as mentioned, my name is Phil Walljasper. Good afternoon. I'm the Enterprise Risk Officer. We talked about the change in the agenda at the beginning of the meeting. The business item has the correct wording on that. I'd like to introduce Deb Driver, our Senior Claim Manager. She oversees the Workers' Compensation Unit and the Liability Unit, and will be overseeing this contract as well, and she'll present the business item.
Great, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and council members. Thank you for hearing my request for an authorization to execute a 3-year contract for workers' compensation legal defense firms. The value to the 3-year contract is not to exceed $1,425,000. Metropolitan Council is self-insured and self-administrated for its workers' compensation coverage. And there are times during the administration of claims where defense counsel is needed for legal proceedings or legal research, and workers' compensation is not handled by our general counsel here. During the RFP process, we found 3 law firms that we feel will meet our needs, and they have worked with self-insured employers before, and they've also worked with governmental agencies. They also provide a diverse level of experience, not only with the handling of workers' compensation, matters, but also in areas of subrogation, professional liability, product liability, and other areas of civil litigation related to workers' compensation.
Are there any questions?
I have a
Go ahead.
question. Thank you,
You're
Madam Chair. And maybe it's not appropriate to ask, so you can tell me if it's not. What's the budget line item for workers' compensation in a year?
I can, Madam Chair, committee members,
In a
I
range, that's
I
fine.
can
That's a
answer
great
that. So
question.
what, we do self-administer, as Deb said, we self-administer our claims. And at the end of the year, we run a report that basically reflects how much money we would need to pay future expenses on current claims, because claims, especially on workers' compensation, grows over time. That is at about $20 million. It's a large number. And we're working hard to reduce that. We're working hard to implement some projects and some initiatives throughout the council to reduce that. But that number is something that, we're not alone in those challenges, but we're continuing to work hard at that. But it's council-wide, it's roughly $20 million.
All right, any other questions? All right, seeing none, we've got the motion that the council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute the contract 22P382A with Fitch, Johnson, Larson, PA, 22P382B with McMullan, Rowley, PA, and 22P382C with Lind, Jensen, Sullivan, and Peterson for legal defense work as it relates to worker compensation claims in amount not to exceed $1.425 million. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Lilligren, is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded. All right, any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, no. And that passes unanimously, so thank you. And we've got another item with Mr. Walljasper, and that's item 202389, Metropolitan Council Blanket Builders Risk Property Insurance. And I'll turn it back to you.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. This business item is seeking authorization for an insurance premium related to the council's blanket builder's risk property insurance program with Liberty Mutual in an amount not to exceed $1,350,000. A builder's risk insurance program or the policy is a type of property insurance that is applicable to construction projects. It provides coverage for damage to materials, property during a construction project, theft, things like that, vandalism. And it's a project-specific policy, and it's typically procured by either the owner of the construction project or the contractor. And if it's the contractor, which is what typically most public entities do, they require that of the contractor, that gets embedded in the bid, and then it gets reflected into the price, and then the owner ends up paying that. In 2018, we ran an analysis to see if we could maybe leverage some of our buying power, the volume of construction projects that we have, maybe get more competitive rates compared to what the contractors generally were putting out there. And we were able to do that. So in 2018, we switched to this builder's risk blanket program where we get the builder's risk insurance, and we remove that requirement from the contractor. Get better rates. We have coverage certainty because we know what we're getting on each and every contract. And it also removes some potential barriers for the small contractors or MCUPs, because if a small contractor is competing with a larger contractor and the buying power is different just because of the size of work that they work on or the insurance that they buy, it's a price that gets reflected in their bids, and one will be higher than the other. It's the same price to us. Actually, I should say it's no increase in price to us. So we remove that barrier as another benefit.
That's great.
So what we do on a quarterly basis is we report our construction projects to Liberty Mutual. Once it gets reported, it's automatically enrolled in the program, coverage is in place, and then annually they bill us for the premium. The reason this business item is before you today is because we included the gold line in this project, and that's higher than what we typically run through the program. So you have not seen this item before because it's never required council approval on an annual basis. With the addition of the gold line and the scope of that project and the term of that project, it puts us up over the threshold, and it requires council approval. So with that, Madam Chair and committee members, again, the business item is seeking authorization to pay the insurance premium for the Builder's Risk Program not to exceed $1.35 million, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great, are there any questions? Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What a interesting program. I think this is really cool. And since we've been doing this, are you seeing more small companies actually put in for projects and bids and things like that?
Madam Chair, committee members, I don't have specific numbers on that. I know that this and a couple other insurance programs have been sometimes obstacles for the smaller contractors. But I will work with procurement and the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity to see if we can break those numbers out.
And the follow-up, I'd just be, interested to see how we're communicating about it to some of these potential contractors that, because business insurance is a big deal and it matters and it's very expensive. I know for me, even in my business, one of my biggest expenses. And so I would love to hear how we're kind of marketing that.
Yeah, Madam Chair, committee members, I know it's not specific to this business item, but just if I can, so for awareness, we also do this for a railroad protective program. So whenever someone has to come and do work next to our railroad, typically there's a special kind of railroad insurance that is required of the contractor, which is not easy to get sometimes, especially for the smaller contractors. We have the exact same program in place that we implemented roughly at the same time that removes that requirement from those contractors working next to our light rail tracks. They pay a small fee, just like the railroads do, and they're automatically enrolled in our program. So we, the council, have protection. It's no increased cost to us. It removes that barrier for the contractors. So it's a similar program as the builder's risk, but it is really a win-win situation.
Okay, cool. Great questions. Any other questions, comments? I would just add too, I would like to somehow notate this somewhere on the work that at least is coming out of this group, or the work that is coming from all of you through this group, to notate that this is one of those things that is helping our DBE and disadvantaged businesses to remove a barrier. So, that's another thing through our new strategic plan, I'm looking at George, who's put in whole bunch of hours to make sure that as we send it off to the governor, that it's where it needs to be, and of course it's a living document, but it's the reporting out and the how are we doings, and sometimes it is anecdotal, like, okay, we've done this, is there a way to track the impact on it? But I think it's great, so I appreciate this program, and this certainly is worthy of the item today, so. Anything else? No other questions? Okay, again, just the proposed action is related to the council's blanket Builder's Risk Policy Program provided by Liberty Mutual in an amount not to exceed $1.35 million. And again, it's authorization to do so. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve. So moved by Barber. Is there a second? Seconded by Lee. Any other further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, no. And that passes unanimously. So thank you very much for that report. Great work by everybody on that as well. We're now on item 6, which is 2023-79, and it's award transit, wastewater, and park bonds within the established financial parameters of Resolution 2023-2, 2023-3, and 2023-4. And we've got Mr. Thompson, Director of Treasury. Oh, we don't? I was fibbing. Well, you know what? Welcome. We're glad to have you instead.
Madam Chair, I apologize. A situation just came up, so
Okay.
you have me, Marie Henderson, Deputy CFO, to fill in for my staff member. So in front of you is business item 2023-79. This is the council's preparing to issue general obligation bonds, which will fund approximately 12 months worth of projected capital project expenditures for transit, wastewater, and parks. Business item represents the adoption of resolutions 2023-2, 2023-3, and 2023-4. With authorization, the issuance, sale, and award of the lowest bidder of 3 bond issuance, provided that each bond sale meets specific size, interest rate, and timing parameters. The financial parameters of each bond series are established with consultation of our municipal advisor and our bond counsel. The sale of each bond can only take place within these parameters. Resolution 2023-2 authorizes the general obligation transit bonds in the amount not to exceed $57 million at a maximum interest rate of 4%. We do expect around 3%, but a little bit higher than what we're used to seeing. The proceeds of these transit bonds will provide funding for various transit capital expenditures as prescribed in the council's regional transportation master plan and transit capital improvement program and will be repaid by property tax levies. Resolution 2023-3 authorizes the general obligation wastewater revenue bonds in the amount not to exceed $102 million at the maximum interest rate of 5%. Again, we're expecting around a 3.75 and higher than what we've seen in the past. The proceeds of these wastewater bonds will provide funding for the acquisition or betterment of our wastewater inceptors and treatment works and are expected to be repaid by the wastewater system revenues. And Resolution 2023-4 authorizes for general obligation park bonds in the amount not to exceed $4.7 million with a maximum interest rate of 4.25. We're expecting around that 3.1. These are shorter term bonds than the transit bonds. That's why a slightly higher interest rate. The proceeds from these park bonds will help fund various park system improvement capital expenditures and will also be repaid by property tax levies. All three resolutions also establish that the bonds must be sold within 90 days, and we expect the projected sale date of May 16th. The results of these bond sales will be reported back to this committee, and the bond finances support the Thrive Lens outcome of stewardship as the general bond obligations are effective and low-costing funding sources for capital projects and expenditures. So, Madam Chair, the proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council adopt parameters within resolutions 2023-2, 2023-3, and 2023-4, which authorizes the issuance, sale, and award of general obligation debt within established financial parameters in accordance of related issuance of expenses and expected execution of documents necessary to assure the financing. Should have brought my
You're great.
glasses down here too.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. Are there any questions? Councilmember Barber, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a very vague question. So just warning you in front. Just with the volatilities in the markets and the changing interest rates and things, we're pretty comfortable with these as the high level of the parameters.
Yes, Madam Chair and committee members, we have had multiple conversations with our advisor, Baker Tilly. We're looking at sales that have gone higher and actually some that are lower. We are really hedging that we will be in these parameters, but again, if we do not land within them, we will come back and restart the sale again.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a comment for our new council members. We tend to do very well on some of these because we have very good financial ratings. And so that's probably why we're doing better than maybe other organizations even on these. So, but I think it's important that you know that as well, that we're very competitive in this.
And on that point, I would just add that, you know, this is a new day, we're going out for bonds, large amounts, and it'll be interesting to see then what the ratings do come back at, because, you know, you constantly are tested every time you go out for a bond sale. So I think we're in good shape, but, you know, we'll find out, and hopefully we're under those upper limits, and we can move forward with this. Are there any other questions? And assuming too that everything goes well, you know, I just would love to see, you know, I like those ratings reports, because AAA is always a good thing, and you know, we want to hang out of that. So.
Absolutely, Madam Chair.
Great. Any other questions? All right then. So we have the staff recommendation to move all three resolutions. As Marie has explained, I won't read it all over again because we've read it a couple of times now. And so I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So
Moved by Lee. Is there a second?
second.
Seconded by Lilligren. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. And that passes unanimously. So thanks for your hard work on that, Marie. We appreciate it, and it'll be fun to see those go through and how we end up at.
Thank you.
We are now on to our last non-consent business item, and that is item 2023-84, labor agreement with the Law Enforcement Labor Services, also LELS, Local 2023, and we've got Marcy Cordes before us to present this report.
Madam Chair and committee members, yes, thank you. Marcy Cordes, I am the Chief Labor Relations Officer. I'm here today to present a tentative agreement that we have reached with Law Enforcement Labor Services Local 203. This local represents 30 or so police supervisors in the title of sergeant and lieutenant. They actually had a contract that expired on December 31st of 2022. This was a 2-year agreement. All of our other groups that we settled contracts with in the last round of bargaining did agree to 3 years. So we found ourselves coming into 2023 and having an open contract period with this group. We did go back into negotiations. The focus was on wages. And our goal, of course, to make sure that we reached a settlement that was in line with what we had negotiated with our other labor groups. We did reach a tentative agreement on March 6th, which the union ratified on April 3. And that agreement includes a general wage increase of 2.5% for calendar 2023. We did just a 1-year agreement because we want them to get back into alignment in the 3-year bargaining cycle, we hope, with our other contracts. And they'll be on the same calendar at the end of the year with the rest of the group. The Thrive Lens analysis, under stewardship, the settlement falls within the financial parameters established by the Council for Managing Labor Costs and Prosperity. We believe this agreement represents a fair and reasonable wage settlement for our employees. So our request today is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to enter into a labor agreement with Law Enforcement Labor Services Local 203, supervisors, sergeants, and lieutenants, effective January 1, 2023 through December 31, 2023.
Great, thanks, Mary. Any questions? Discussion? All right, seeing none, then I would entertain a motion to approve the proposed action.
So moved.
Moved by Barber, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Pacheco. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. And that passes unanimously, so thank you very much. We are now at the part of our agenda where we will be going into closed session. So I'm just gonna read this notice, but I'll turn it over to Councilmember Barber. A portion of this meeting will be close to the public pursuant to Minnesota statutes to consider labor negotiation strategy. When we come back out of closed session, we will not be continuing any meetings. So as of now, the public meeting will end, and then we'll be able to have discussions with Marcy. So I'll turn it over to Councilmember Barber for the motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I move to close this meeting under section 13D.03, subdivision 1 of the Minnesota statutes so we can consider a labor development negotiated related to labor strategies.
And is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Lilligren. Again, I'll just read this to be clear. The governing body of a public employer by majority vote in a public meeting may decide to hold a closed meeting under the provisions of section 13D.03 subdivision 1B of Minnesota statutes. The discussion at a meeting closed under this law must be confined to labor negotiation strategies, developments, and or discussion and review of labor proposals. The proceedings of a meeting closed under this law will be tape recorded, preserved for 2 years, and made available to the public as provided by law. With that, I'll call for a roll call on this item. Oh, no roll call needed? Oh, okay.
Just
Oh, we'll change that. Okay, then. Maybe that was during virtual. We're still left over from virtual meetings. Sorry about that. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. And that passes unanimously. So the public, and we'll wait till we hear from our superintendent.